Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started with our broadcast. Thank you for joining Hire Presents How to Design and Measure a Successful Career Advancement Program. We're so excited that you've joined us. You made a great decision in attending this webinar as it promises to be very cutting edge and beneficial for the current climate in refugee employment. Today, we're presenting this webinar with our partners, USCRI and their North Carolina field office, and one of our technical assistance friends, Meta, with the IRC. My name is Nicole Redford. I am the program manager for Hire. And if you are not familiar with Hire, Hire is a technical assistance provider under a grant through the Office for Refugee Resettlement. We work with all of the 9 resettlement agencies and their local affiliates all across the country, bringing technical assistance and support to employment programs and their staff. Our primary focus is to work with employment staff, and we like to create tools and resources that assist throughout the process, also highlight wonderful success stories from the field. Before we jump into our webinar, just a couple housekeeping items. This webinar is going to be an hour and a half in length. Please, throughout the webinar, if you have any questions whatsoever, type them into your chat box or the question box located to the side panel of GoToWebinar. This presentation will be recorded and will be made available on Hire's website under our Resources tab. There's also going to be a follow-up survey, so if you could please take 60 seconds to complete the survey when you receive it in your inbox at the end of the webinar. So to get into our presentation, I want to introduce our guest presenters that will be joining throughout the webinar today. First of all, we have Hannah Parkin, who is in charge of a career advancement program with USCRI's North Carolina field office. And we have our TA friend and good partner, Margaret Gibbon, who oversees Meta with the IRC. Meta is here to help us learn how to maximize the usage of data captured from employment programs and help us learn new ways to measure our employment programs and show the power that data can have for all of our different audiences and stakeholders. Today, during this webinar, we hope that you will be able to name some key outcomes and activities for successful career advancement program, understand methods and tools to measure program components and use data to tell a story, identify ways to utilize their current employment program to provide job upgrade and career pathway opportunities. Also, the power that data can have to be impressive to any audience that you want to persuade to be involved in your employment program. So why career advancement programming? Why is it important now, and why did we choose this topic? We believe at Hire that this is the perfect time to focus on career advancement programming, to really focus on re-engaging clients who have been resettled here in the US and are working an entry-level position to help them get out of those entry-level jobs and onto a career pathway. We also feel like this process can be done easily with all of the pieces of your existing employment programs. We want to help you be aware of how to improve long-term outcomes for clients and help you meet your state contract numbers in a time of low arrivals. We've heard from offices across the country that with low new arrivals, they're unable to meet the numbers that they set forth in their state contracts. And so we want to really encourage a career advancement process to re-engage clients. We also want to make sure that the data that you capture from career advancement is used for different purposes, such as attracting volunteers, community partners, or even attracting new funding opportunities. We want you to feel confident in serving career advancement clients so that we can learn all the different pieces on how to help them along a career pathway and all of the key partners that are needed in this process. When career advancement is the goal for a client, we just want programs to be clear that what a career advancement program can be doesn't necessarily mean taking a client from a prep cook position to that of a doctor. Instead, a career pathway involves a lot of individualized planning and taking clients throughout that path to jobs 2, 3, 4, and accept. I wanted to start this webinar today with a successful program that's been operating in North Carolina under USCRI. And to do that, we've welcomed Hannah Parkin, who oversees a career advancement program, who's going to tell you all about her successes and how they've carried out a program serving clients for jobs 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thanks, Nicole. So the Career Enhancement Opportunity Program started in October of 2016. We do get all of our funding from the North Carolina State Refugee Office as part of the Refugees Assistance Program. And that funding is specifically for the reskilling and recertification of refugees, SIVs, asylees, and parolees. The program still does provide targeted employment support for these clients that have professional experience and for clients that are seeking job upgrades. So now that the program is fully funded into RAP, a majority of the caseload does fall onto one employment specialist or job developer, but I do get support from the other job developer in the program. Previous to the CEO starting, we had a basic job development program already in place. The focus was basically getting refugees into jobs quickly, and that was something that we were very good at. But they would usually go into a career or a job that the client didn't really have much experience in or really any interest in doing over the long term. So to better serve our clients and to help them become more self-sufficient, we needed to work with them on a more individual level and discuss their plans and goals for the future. To do that, we do take an individualized approach with each client. That's what the CEO program is all about, getting to know our clients on a more personal level, getting them into careers that they want by helping them access education and training, and getting them into those careers. Next slide, please. Okay. I know a lot of people have problems with when you start a new program, you just can't get people in the doors to recruit. Well, I think our program has been pretty successful, and a lot of that has been word of mouth. There was a lot of legwork put into starting up the program and spreading the word about it. But once the word gets out there that this program helps you with the career path you're interested in, and that there's funding for that, it really spreads. And we've had a lot of clients come to us because just people in their community were aware of the program. We also get referrals from other resettlement agencies because I think we're the only one in the area that's really focused on career development for those that already have these skill sets. Whereas everyone else is kind of doing the generic model of let's just get people jobs quickly and it might not be what they want. So because we've been focusing on career development for higher skilled workers, we are getting a lot of agency referrals for this. We've also been engaging the youth, refugee youth, so people who came to the U.S. in 2015 and 2016. We have been reaching out to them. You know, if they came at 18 or even up to 20, they were still probably in high school. So now they're leaving high school, they're looking for a career or to get more education, and we're really working with them one-on-one to see, what their options are as far as career or training or education is concerned. And we also had a community event on June 2nd, and you'll see the flyers here for that. That was aimed at doing the same exact thing. So we went into the community. We had this program event for people to come in and learn more about the different training opportunities, about the community college and enrollment, and just working with us one-on-one to see what that would look like for them or what it could look like, and scheduling a time for them to come into the office to get more in depth with that. And I think once you get one or two people into this, they really see the benefits of it, and it has definitely spread, and we've got quite a few people enrolled in the program since June 2nd. We have had a lot of successes. So these are just some of the certifications and trainings that our clients have attended and completed. We do have a few certified nursing assistants among our clients. The CNAs now are working in the healthcare industry and also in retirement homes. These clients came in without any skills needed for the career, and they recognized the need for these jobs in the real world and that they could get through the certification course quickly. And we helped them through the process of enrolling and with some of the funding and helping them find jobs after they completed the certification course. We also have a connection with a commercial trucking academy here that would help our clients get driving licenses, and a few of our clients are currently working as commercial truck drivers. We have HVAC technicians who learned and got on-the-job training for HVAC, and so now they're currently working with their certification, and they could transfer to another company if they decide because that certification is transferable. We also have certified bakers. Some of them got the certification through the community college. Others were able to get that certification through their job. The unarmed security guard training is typically done through the employer, and there are a number of security guard employers throughout the Triangle area that we're operating in that are doing this 2-day to 1-week training for clients. A number of our clients have come here with other skill sets. Some of those clients came from engineering backgrounds. So instead of retaking the certification exam for engineering, our clients may choose to get a certification that would enable them to take a similar job, but maybe one with less training and expense to the client, such as the Introduction to Asphalt certification and the Roadway Technician certification. Other clients have come as legal assistants, lawyers, doctors, and with those, there's just other certifications and personalized training approach that we take with them for that. Okay, these are just two of the successes we've had, although I would say there are quite a few more that I wouldn't mind putting up here. But the first one is a female client who was an engineer in Iraq. He or she completed both the Introduction to Asphalt certification and the Roadway Technician certification. And having completed both of these, she was able to get hired by ESPI Engineering as a dot inspector for the Department of Transportation. The next client, one of our male clients completed the Cisco Certified Network Associate and Cisco Certified Network Professional. These are two certifications, the CCNA being the fundamental certification for Cisco, and with that, they introduce IP routing and LAN switching local area networks. With these certifications, the client was able to get hired by Cisco in the Research Triangle Park area. These are popular jobs. With this kind of certification, a client could become a network engineer, an IT manager, or a systems administrator, as just some of the basics that, these certifications could help them get to that point. Okay, here are a look at our numbers, which is always important for funding and to see how the programs are doing. RAP as a general program, the Refugee Assistant Program, serves roughly 290 clients every year. Usually, of those 290 clients, 40 are receiving specialized services and the CEO program. And we typically don't have any trouble meeting our goals, even with the lower number of arrivals, because we have been utilizing the tactics of going back through, who came a few years ago, reaching out to younger clients. So actually, we've already exceeded our goals for new RAP enrollments. So with that being said, the wages for these CEO clients are well above minimum wage. Here in North Carolina, the minimum is $7.25. And as you see here, the clients' lowest wages are $8.50. And for these, they're clients that are currently working on 2-year degrees and working part-time. Then you see some client well, it's actually one specific client's making over $20 an hour. So there's a varied wage range there, but as you can see, pretty decent wages from these clients who've gone through the certification courses. I think that our male to female ratio is also fairly good for the higher wage, higher skill level jobs that we have been working with clients. So females are about 25% of the population in the CEO program. And I think that that is great to see these females getting more skilled and educated jobs. And I think that goes back to just, intentionally going out and working with the female population. A lot of these ladies were in professional careers before they came, and just keeping up with them and their goals is just like the males that come to the program. Sometimes you'll have different cultural experiences with each, so just again with the individualized approach to each client, you'll find more women are succeeding in this as well. All right. And everyone needs key partnerships. Without our partners, we would not be able to serve the clients in the way that we do now. Some new partnerships we have created is driving lesson instructors. So we have made a partnership with a Swahili English speaking driving instructor. So he's been able to help our clients access driving lessons, which before transportation has always been a barrier. So this is just one way that we're trying to knock down some of those barriers. We also work with Wake Technical Community College, and they have been amazing, as I'm sure your community colleges are wherever you are. But Wake Tech has been working with us to create a core curriculum construction course. So helping clients who are interested in construction careers kind of dip their toes in each thing over the course of a few weeks. So a little bit of HVAC, a little bit of carpentry, a little bit of installing insulation, just kind of getting them a feel for each of these careers and how they can go on and proceed through there. And they also have a really great apprenticeship program. As I mentioned earlier, we do work with Carolina Trucking Academy. They are commercial truck driving school. And with their assistance, we have been able to get a few clients through their program who are now driving trucks as a living. And we are always looking for new employers, and ways that we have done that is LinkedIn. I made a connection with a manager of Walgreens, and now he agreed to interview one of our clients who got her pharmacy technician degree, and she's now working as a pharmacy technician assistant at Walgreens. So we're all really excited about that. We also meet a lot of employers at job fairs and through our extensive volunteer network, and also from other clients. So without our huge network of supporters, this wouldn't even be possible. We've also been very lucky to have great donors and sponsors. One specific donor has been just incredibly helpful. Through his micro lending program, a number of our clients have been able to pay for their education or the truck driving school, and then they pay him back in installments with zero interest based on the loan type. So he has been amazing to have that partnership with the donor, and it's really allowed a lot of our clients who wouldn't be able to access traditional types of lending to really get in there and take advantage of that and really start their education and feel like it was them who made it happen, not the resettlement agency that supported them throughout the whole trip. And we lean on other NGOs and resettlement agencies as well as nonprofits in the area. So we've just made partnerships with Dress for Success to help women get professional clothing and prepare for interviews. The other resettlement agencies, we always keep in touch to say, hey, this person's hiring. do you have any clients that need to go there? Or, yeah, so we do a really good job, I think, of keeping in touch with everyone and keeping abreast of all the new information and also funding that's out there for our clients to access education.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing all about your program. I love the name CEO, standing for Career Enhancement Opportunities. Such a cute name for a program. I'm sure it's inspiring to clients who really want to get back into the professional workforce or who are just interested in pursuing a new career. Everyone will have an opportunity to ask Hannah questions at the end of the webinar. Now we want to turn to how Hannah was able to create this type of program. We're going to actually break down the program piece by piece and show you not only how you can build an amazing program like USCRI North Carolina was able to do, but also working with Meta to really show how the data can be collected, where it can be collected, and where it can be best utilized to attract new funding opportunities or new volunteers into your program. Before Meg joins us, I just want to engage the audience in a quick poll. So we wanted to talk a little bit about creating a theory of change to really best serve your clients in a new type of employment program, a career advancement program. So we just want to know from the audience, have you ever used a theory of change in an employment program? If everyone will just take a moment to answer the poll. Yes, no, maybe you're not sure. Maybe the program existed before you joined and there's no current operating theory of change for that program. So we're just collecting a couple more answers here. And I'm going to close the poll. And I'm going to share the poll results so that everyone has an opportunity to see the results. And as Meg Given joins us from Meta to lead us into the theory of change for employment programs, Meg, you can kind of see that the answers are split between all three, 23% saying yes, they have, 46% saying no, and 31% who are unsure. So welcome,
Great.
everyone. This is Meg Gibbon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nicole, for, of course, inviting me on this webinar. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. We wanted to kick off this conversation to find out whether this is familiar to you or not. It sounds like some of us have already been creating theories of change or have created at least one for an employment program in the past, and it's definitely new for some others. And so we wanted to start in this topic about theories of change when it comes to creating a new program or adapting a current program into a new design. Because having just heard from Hannah about how successful a career advancement program can be, I know it can be hard to think about, well, where do I start if I want to begin doing a program like this? What are the best practices for program design, in general that can be applied to this type of program? And so, when it comes to any program design, the first step that we like to recommend at Meta is to develop a strong theory of change. And what you're looking at now is a very basic theory of change for a career advancement program. And I'm going to take just a minute to walk through this to just give you an example of what some of the key outcomes can look like for this type of program. So to create a theory of change effectively, we need to start off by thinking about what does the program ultimately want to achieve? This means, not jumping right away to what specific activities we want to do, what are we maybe already doing? Instead, taking a bit of a step back and asking ourselves, what is the ultimate goal we want our clients to achieve through the help of this program, right? What does this program contribute to? Maybe not even achieve on its own, but in terms of an ultimate long-term goal, what are we looking at for our clients? And in this case, you'll find that on the far right in the darkest yellow color. Talking with Nicole, one or two of the maybe key long-term goals of a career advancement program may be that clients improve their financial stability and that they're more satisfied with their jobs. And I don't want to suggest that those are the only two long-term goals of a career advancement program, but I think those give you a sense of what the typical goals for this sort of program may be. And then what we want to do is begin a process called backwards mapping, where we think about what do we need then to achieve that long-term goal. And working backwards, we might say that in order for clients to improve their financial stability and to be more satisfied with their jobs, they need to obtain jobs that provide higher than a living wage and that align with their mapped out career path. And then again, working backwards, I'm kind of moving right to left here. In order to obtain those jobs, they need to have maybe these three things at least. They need to have the relevant job readiness skills needed to pursue their career path. They need to have the English language skills that are also needed to pursue their career path, as well as any necessary education, licensure, or recertification needed. And again, I'm just sort of stressing here, these are a few examples of the type of program components that are typically used, but I don't want to suggest that this is a set in stone model, more to get you thinking about how you can use this process that I'm describing to adapt or to design a career advancement program that fits your population and their specific needs in the specific context where you're operating. So now that we've sort of identified these long-term goals as well as these kind of key program outcomes, thinking back to the more program output stage of what do we actually need to do in our program, what does our program need to produce in order to result in those outcomes for clients? If we want them to have job readiness skills, they need to enroll in job readiness training or JRT. To have English skills, we may enroll them in our own or our partner's English language training. And then to have any necessary education or recertification, we would enroll them in those programs as well, or deliver, those partnered programs that something like what Hannah described. And then as a precondition to all of this, we would want the clients to first map out their career path with the employment specialist or the relevant person on the team to guide all the efforts that we are talking about here. So the arrows that you have going from left to right are showing the logical progression or the causal pathways that are kind of leading from A to B to C, getting those clients to that ultimate long-term goal or contributing to that. And finally, on the far left in light blue, what you have are some key program activities, and you heard Hannah describe all of these, that are then going to, if we implement these activities, produce the outputs I mentioned, and then lead to the outcomes and long-term goal that I talked about. So this is kind of a brief introduction to theories of change. We could definitely provide a whole training on this topic, and Meta actually loves to do that. So if you're interested, go ahead and reach out. But I won't go into more detail on theories of change for now. I just want to emphasize the importance of taking this type of reflective process. It doesn't have to be time-consuming. Even beginning to think through this at any level is better than not doing it at all, because it really serves as the foundation for a solid project design. So I would really strongly encourage anyone who's thinking through how they can start or adapt their career advancement program to just meet as a team and ask ourselves, some of these questions. What do we want to achieve? How will we get there? What do our clients need in order to, move through the ultimate outcomes that we're looking for? And that would start the project off with a logically sound foundation. So next, I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole to begin digging into each of the 8 activities that you see listed, as well as the outputs they produce, and I'll talk a bit more about how they can be measured.
Wonderful. So as you saw there on the left-hand side of the screen, we had broken down an employment program into 8 different core components. At Hire, we consider these 8 components necessary to really carry out a thoughtful employment program, and that can be whether it's aimed to entry-level clients, mid-career clients, or clients who are going to a much higher career advancement type programming process. And we really want to break these down so that you understand how each one can be served for different clientele. And a lot of it, Hannah was able to kind of demonstrate action in the field, but we're going to make sure that we give you tons of great examples going through each of these pieces. So I want to start with the first one, which is individualized assessment and short and long-term career planning. So these are pieces that are core components and required under any employment contract through ORR. It's something that should be done when you're assessing and bringing clients into an employment program, doing that short and long-term planning, which we really believe short-term planning are those first initial 6 months where a client's goal is to enter an entry-level job for the purpose of self-sufficiency. So our focus here kind of then turns to the long-term plan. And a long-term plan can be as long or as short as is needed for any particular client. And in a career advancement program, each client is going to have different goals and needs. As we saw with Hannah, with her clients who came into the country with experience as a baker or an engineer, or working as a computer tech. So the planning process is really going to be quite individualized based on the needs of each client. But a lot of these things on the list here should be considered when sitting down with a client to kind of gauge where they're at currently in their career, and then to see all the pieces that are needed. As Hannah talked about, the community partnerships, such as community colleges to help with ESL. Where is that client currently in their ESL level, and what are they going to need to access? Do they need a GED or some sort of higher level education in order to enter into the profession that they want to here in this country? Are there on-the-job trainings or apprenticeships that would be available to clients for particular careers? Does the client require any sort of re-credentialing, or do they need certification of their overseas degree? Is there a licensure required to practice in that particular field in your state? And now each state have many different processes for licensures and requirements and tests, and they vary state by state. There's no standard across the country currently. There are a couple states that have licensure guides, and I know of a bunch of states that are working on licensure guides for anyone who wishes to enter that profession that's coming from overseas, and what are all those pieces needed. Of course, you're going to need work references from here in this country, the experience that the clients have gained from their current job, and then ultimately, what is that career goal? So all of these things that are a conversation that you would be having with a client to really lay out or map their individual career plan. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see 3 images, and these images are ones that we've seen and pulled from employment programs across the country who are utilizing these visual maps when sitting down with clients to do the long-term career planning. So you'll see there's the stairway being with the ultimate goal on top, whatever that job is that the client is wanting to go after. And then the stairs along the way being all the different steps and pieces. So does the client need to take an English class? Is that English class a lower level? Is it a technical specific English class? Or can it be a contextualized learning class like Hannah was talking about in her program? What sort of ESL is needed for that client? It can also be the client has a bachelor's degree, but based off of labor market information, you see that jobs require a master's degree for entry-level positions. So does that client require needing to go back to school here in this country? There's also the model of the bridge. So starting on one side of the bridge, starting with that entry-level position and all the prongs or pieces of that bridge that would build across to their ultimate career. And finally, a simple timeline type piece. So sitting down with the client and mapping it out in terms of time, how much time it would take to go from piece to piece. And of course, you're not going to know all of the pieces in order to get into that client's particular career. So we're going to give you a number of key partners that you're going to need to carry out these programs. And we're also going to give you information on where you can find all the requirements and trainings needed for each career in this country. And so that takes us to number 2, which is strong case management. Case management is so important in any employment program, but even more so when bringing a client into a career pathway type program. We want to make sure that this client who's coming in is already working an entry-level position, but are they financially able to take on a career pathway right now? Are they able to invest and save towards the costs of courses or licensures or exams or any accreditation that might be needed towards this career? So sitting down and doing a budget with a client, making sure that they're in a position financially to take on this additional workload. Does the client also have support of their family? Is their spouse willing to take care of their kids? Is the client the sole breadwinner in the family unit? If so, they probably have way too many constraints on their time and wouldn't be able to give as much time to this process as is necessary. And as all of us know, looking for a new job and working towards promotion or going on a career pathway does take time, so they're going to have to invest outside of their current position. So we want to make sure that the client is able to do these things. Is the client mentally prepared for the long process of a career pathway? Are they able to take on this additional workload? Are they able to withstand potential setbacks that might come up along the pathway? Is the client where are they at in their ESL level? What additional courses do they need? What technical courses might they need in order to learn, let's say, the lingo of a nurse? We want to make sure that you know that you have labor market information to better advise your clients so that you can do informed case management. So on the Department of Labor's 2 websites, ONET and Career One Stop, are 2 tools that you can utilize to look up each individual career profile or occupation profile. For example, earlier today, I pulled up the occupation profile for a power plant operator. So let's say you have someone who was resettled in North Dakota and wanted to get into that particular field. Well, I can go on to ONET online and simply type in that particular profession, and it pulls up so much wonderful information. It lets me know what kind of day-to-day tasks are required for this particular job, what technology and specific skills are needed. Are there actual individual courses that are needed to be completed here in this country? Are there particular computer systems that the client is required to know? There's also some wonderful information about who is getting hired into that profession and what educational level they're entering that profession with. So if a client's coming into the country with a bachelor's degree and are wondering if they're able to enter that profession or if they need to obtain a master's degree, you can pull up that information to see what percentage are getting hired at what different levels. Also, I think it's really wonderful when doing informed case management and looking at your labor market information, just knowing what the trend is in that particular career. For example, for this particular client who is wanting to be a power plant operator, the national trend is that there are 3,200 jobs open nationally. And over the next 10 years, it will continue to remain about that number and will change only positively by 1 percentage point. So essentially in 10 years, there will be the same number of jobs open in that particular field. And I can further find out that specifically in North Dakota, only 10 of those will be positions in that particular state. So it's possible that there are geographic constraints when looking up information on particular careers. So really doing informed case management so you're giving the best possible advice to clients about the jobs that they want to get into and not having to remember all of the different careers and all of the different pieces and puzzles that are required. So there's already some wonderful tools out there. And if you need more information about labor markets and how to find and access that information locally, please do go to the Hire website. We just released our labor market information guide earlier this year, and it walks you through step by step on how to use this specifically for case management in this particular scenario. And then, of course, a versatile job readiness. So you're already teaching job readiness, and you can teach and essentially teach the same information to clients that are coming back seeking a career advancement or career pathway. Consider that when you're teaching job readiness for new clients, you're teaching what is a basic resume. Well, you can do that same lesson with a career advancement client, but you're going to focus on what does a US professional style resume look like. And again, Hire just released a couple guides on how to write these resumes on our blog. So I highly recommend you check out the blog and those particular pieces. But knowing full well that job readiness is such a key component and really is similar to what you are currently teaching, but is just tweaking for a higher level audience. For example, clients are going to need to know how to interview. They're going to need to know their workers' rights. Have those lessons reinforced.
Great, so we've talked about a few activities so far. I'm going to jump in here and speak a little bit about how we could think about measuring the outputs of those activities. And that's something that involves defining project indicators. I know it can be sometimes confusing to talk about what an indicator actually is, how it's different from the activity or the output that you're measuring. But when we talk about indicators, we are talking about the variables that we use to measure change. So it might be a percentage or a count, a total count, an average, some variable that we're using to measure the answers to questions like, are we doing what we said we would do? Are we seeing the changes that we thought we would see? And the only way to really answer these questions objectively is to collect data. So when we define how we measure a program's outcomes and outputs using these type of SMART indicators in particular, I'm sure most of us are familiar with the acronym SMART, which usually stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Once we set up some SMART indicators for the program outputs and outcomes that we want to measure in order to learn what we need to learn about our programs, then we're starting ourselves off on a good foot for a strong measurement system that will help us learn and grow over time, and which is obviously something important not just for accountability to our partners and to our donors, but for understanding the strengths and weaknesses of our programs and making data-driven changes to help improve them over time and ultimately improve outcomes for clients. So all that's to say, here are a few examples of what this might look like in the case of the three activities that Nicole has been describing. First, if we think about individualized assessment as well as short and long-term planning, for this, we may consider measuring the number of male and female clients enrolled in the program who have a completed intake assessment. And then on the far right, you'll see in our data sources column, one area you might think about for looking for some of these indicators, looking for the data to calculate the indicators, would be having a completed intake form in the case file. Same thing goes for measuring this activity using the percentage of male and female clients enrolled who have a career advancement plan in place within 30 days of program enrollment. And here getting into that timeliness aspect, is it 30 days or 60 days, whatever makes sense. Shorter, 1 week if you're doing a kind of rapid program. Making sure the indicator is as smart as possible so that we can have it be really meaningful. When it comes to strong case management, we may want to measure, of the male and female clients enrolled in this program, what percentage are attending weekly career planning meetings with the caseworker. You could get this to be even more specific, what percentage attend at least one meeting per month or at least 2 meetings per month, right? If we want to be able to say, for example, that we have actively engaged clients or know whether we do or don't. We might also consider measuring the percentage of enrolled male and female clients who are referred to at least one of our community partners or community resources. And then on the question of versatile job readiness, what percentage of male and female clients enrolled in the program are attending JRT at least once per week, or are attending 3 out of the 5 sessions of our JRT curriculum? Whatever the case is that makes sense for you, thinking about what way to structure the indicator would most meaningfully tell you what you are wanting to know about the program. One thing I'll note here before handing back over to Nicole is that you can see the way that I structured these is really focusing on gender disaggregation. So as Hannah alluded to earlier, if we are interested in gender equality in our programs and we want to know what the status of our programs is with regard to different indicators, we can only do that if we're collecting gender disaggregated data, so data for both male and female clients. If we're collecting it only as one aggregate kind of a lump number, we're not going to be able to know what we need to know, and that can really change the story of the program, being able to do this type of disaggregation, not only by gender, but also by other relevant categories. And so one final thing I'll note here is, the indicators that I'm handing you as examples here, I don't want to say that these are, standard indicators that you should start using right away. I'm just looking to give you some ideas of things that you can consider when drafting your own indicators for your programs in career advancement.
So moving on, we want to look at steps 4 and 5. So strategic job development, and you heard Hannah talk a lot about the job development that they do for their clients one-on-one. So thinking about your local labor market and what it has to offer in your particular area, who are the employers that are offering the best opportunities. So we like to say at Hire that we would like to see employment programs finding quality first jobs. And we at Hire are defining that as a job that leads to financial self-sufficiency, is accessible by public or reliable transportation, are permanent full-time with benefits, and have a positive company culture, and have the opportunity to utilize your client's skills. This is really great because there's opportunities to place clients into positions that have the opportunity for a client to move up without ever having to leave their first employer. So they can remain on their career path and still be able to assess either a supervisor position or a management type position, or move out of the initial positions that they were hired into an area that's of more interest to them. So thinking about the jobs where you're placing clients as a stepping stone to move up and on their career pathway. And of course, referring back to labor market information, there's a photo of the guide that's available on our website. And we did do a webinar on it earlier this year to kind of help break down those pieces even more. But again, at a federal level, there are two websites that you can utilize. One is careeronestop.org. That's all one word, careeronestop.org. And the other one is ONET, ONET.org. Both of these are federal level labor market information resources. You have the same information available to you at a state and local level. And after WIOA brought together all of the agencies of the Department of Labor, you can find labor market information housed at American job centers across the country. They're working very closely together to identify gaps in training across their local markets to make sure that they are training a workforce to meet the demands of employers in their particular area. So really thinking strategically about the jobs that you're placing clients into and taking them on a really great pathway. And then, of course, consistent follow-up, making sure that you're staying in touch with those employers and making sure that you're staying in touch with the clients. Currently, you have program requirements that are having 2-week follow-up or 1-month follow-up, but we encourage going a little bit further because I think there are follow-up conversations that can be had with clients, and those are opportunities to really re-engage clients into your employment programs. Calling them around the 6-month mark, just checking in, seeing how you're doing. Are you ready for a change? Are you seeing opportunities in your particular job? Have you let your employer know that you're looking to move up or to earn more money? And then, of course, checking in with employers and letting them know that my client's been there for a while. They've gotten only positive feedback, positive performance reviews. What are the opportunities for them to move up and advance? What are the opportunities for them to receive a promotion? And those are great first steps along a career pathway, just moving up within their current position so that they're in a better place to really focus on their career pathway. And it's possible that the career pathway leads them just further down the road at that initial employer. So there's tons of opportunities. And of course, knowing your local labor market is key so that you understand what are the opportunities currently in that labor market. And if you're going to invest time for that client to really study or go back to school, is that particular industry going to be viable for the client over a 10-year period? Career laddering opportunities. So thinking again about those initial first placements, really focusing on how a career laddering opportunity can go, what a career pathway can look like. Most career pathways are not going to be linear. So many people that you'll see that are professionals working today did not have a logical linear career pathway. I used to play this game, Snakes and Ladders, with clients to simulate what to expect in a workplace, that there are going to be unexpected setbacks. And unexpected opportunities that can come along while working toward a specific career goal. Many of us have experienced a layoff or a training or promotion along the way that we were not expecting or planning for. Knowing what and how to react during those times is really key, but also just understanding that it's going to take longer than we thought. So when playing the game, people finish at different times. It takes longer for them to finish than they had thought. Career advancement does take time. It does take a lot of effort for both you and the clients themselves. It takes a typical American a long time these days also to find employment. According to the Department of Labor, in May 2018, 19.4% of all unemployed people were taking 27 weeks or more to find a new position. Think about all the time that they've spent just looking for a job and now adding in all of the barriers that clients face as well. Just letting clients know that it's going to be a long timeline, it's going to take a long time, but it's worth it, and that there are a lot of steps along the way that are going to bring successes. We like to say that imagine you have a client who came to you. He was an engineer from Iraq, and you were able to place him very quickly as a prep cook at a hotel. He's working really hard and he's making a great impression. His second job, because he's doing so well, is at the front desk. He's learned a lot of English. He's able to learn even more by interacting with guests. He's at the same employer that he was placed at. He's earning more money and he's having an opportunity to learn more in his new position. Because he spoke with his employer, because he let his employer know that he was an engineer and interested in returning into his field, he was later promoted as his third job in the engineering department to the hotel. At the same hotel, he's got a promotion and he's managing the engineering department until finally he lands a job with an electrical engineering company. And then again, he's beginning a new career pathway, moving up that ladder within that new company. So think about it as steps along the way that really contribute towards an overall goal, but don't have to go immediately into that goal.
So thinking about how we might consider the question of measurement for those three activities, those three steps that Nicole just ran through, starting with the question of strategic job development, including whether or not clients are obtaining quality initial jobs using those criteria you heard from Nicole. One thing we could consider measuring is, of the male and female clients enrolled in the program, what % have jobs that are permanent, that are full-time, that have health insurance, that pay a living wage on intake. And, for the sake of space, I'm combining here the different criteria that Nicole talked about, but for the indicators that you think are relevant for you, that you think are the ones that will tell you the information you need to make informed, decisions, understand your program, you would want to measure each of those things individually so you can really see, what % are full-time. Maybe they're all full-time, but none of them have health insurance, right? Is it still a quality job? Looking at that in that way. And, I left out some of the things that Nicole mentioned as well, things around company culture or accessibility via public transportation. Those might be things you would want to measure as well to find out if barriers exist to obtaining, truly quality first jobs. When it comes to the question of job development, strategic job development, you could measure what % of clients enrolled are receiving, one promotion or one or more promotions in line with their ultimate career goal as defined in that career pathway diagram that we talked about at the very beginning. And you could compare the jobs they obtain with the career map and see, do those jobs align? Are people attaining promotions, but they're not in line with the ultimate career goal? What does that say about our program? On the question of consistent follow-up, you could measure what % of clients enrolled in the program are contacted by their caseworker or employment specialist at least once per month, at least once per week. Maybe this is only the clients who are employed that you're re-engaging with once per quarter. Those type of things are things you could consider measuring in order to learn whether you are consistently following up with clients. You might also want to measure whether you're consistently following up with employers to understand to what extent you're maintaining that relationship. Of employers who employ, X or more clients, what % are you contacting by your employment specialist at least once per month or once per quarter, whatever the case is. And then finally, when it comes to career laddering opportunities, you could ask yourself to measure what percentage of male and female clients enrolled have that career ladder visual aid developed within the first 3 months of a program enrollment or the first week of program enrollment if it's something you're going to do right away for them. And you could look at the data source within the case file to find the data in order to calculate that indicator. So these are, again, a few examples to get you thinking about not only doing the activities that Nicole has recommended, but also measuring those same activity, the outputs of those same activities in order to hold ourselves accountable and be able to make program decisions based on that information.
Wonderful. So thank you for staying with us. We've made it to the final 2 steps. So these 2 are really the more important pieces, the pieces where you're going to open your program up to assistance and aid from your community. So number 7, we truly believe that volunteer engagement is so important. And we've heard from employment programs across the country that you've had an outpouring of interest and support from people in your community that want to volunteer. So we want to make sure that you're utilizing volunteers to help you reinforce each of the pieces along the way to carry out an effective career advancement program. For example, your volunteers may be coming in and doing one-on-one interviewing with clients. Another opportunity for volunteers is to come in and to help you teach job readiness. Perhaps your employers are coming to speak in your job readiness courses. You have people that are coming to volunteer that are trained in a particular profession or technical background. Why not utilize volunteers as career mentors, matching them one-on-one with a client who may have a similar career interest? Or perhaps just using them as a study buddy to help a client study for a licensure exam that is upcoming for them on their career pathway. There's so many opportunities for you to utilize and engage volunteers. I believe Hannah mentioned that they are using volunteers to donate interview clothing to their clients. So they have interview impressive professional clothing to wear to their interviews. Also engaging companies who may have time to devote to a day of volunteer service in their community to have them either help clients learn their routes to their jobs, help them learn how to create a better resume, help clients prepare for an upcoming job interview, or even learning the ins and outs of the American workforce, just a little bit of job shadowing or the potential volunteer opportunities for clients themselves that the community may know of. And then Hannah really was great at stressing the community and advocacy partnerships that are needed to carry out these programs. So step number 8 is really important because you're going to have to look to partners in your community to help you carry out not only the programs, but also to have a very strong referral network in place so that you're able to refer clients to the same programs. And in working with these partners, identifying needs in the community to build up trainings and partnerships that are needed. Now, WIOA and American Job Centers are going to be key partners for you along the way, mainly because they're doing the exact same work that we're doing and could be, they're able to serve our refugee clients as well. They have access to so much more funding for trainings and for apprenticeship programs in your community. So really connecting with an American Job Center, see what trainings are already being offered if they match with interests of your clients. See what kind of information that they're getting from labor markets as to what are the hot market trends for employment in your area. Also, financial institutions. We believe that financial institutions are a great partner to teach financial literacy classes to clients, a really key component to integrating into American society, just really learning the ins and outs of banks and credit unions and whatnot. Also, financial institutions can be great partners to help your clients open those bank accounts and maybe funding opportunities for your clients as well. The transportation department, working with the transportation department to inform them of the needs of your community, working with that department to expand public transportation. It's not something that happens overnight, but can be done through advocacy efforts. Community colleges. Community colleges have wonderful opportunities, especially for low-level English proficient adults. Great courses to take. They're offering all the licensure type courses, or 2-year degree, technical degrees that might be needed for some of the initial programs and steps. They're probably the ones that are offering those. Cisco certified exams, all of the Microsoft exams that might be needed for some of those tech careers. We also think universities are a great partner. Universities are great just to go and to learn a little bit more about each of the professions that your client might be interested in returning to, what their advice is on if a client should go for a master's degree. And any sort of network that those universities might have that your client could tap into. And of course, Upwardly Global is a great partner. They're doing work with high-skilled clients, but have a lot of similar tools in order to help clients through this process. And so you might want to check out their website. And WES. WES is a great organization that can help clients with overseas degrees, get them evaluated here at a low cost, and they're working on licensure guides themselves for a couple professions. So definitely check them out as potential partners. And to you, Meg.
Great, so I'm sure everyone is getting the idea by now. For measuring volunteer engagement, such an important part of a program, one example that I gave is just measuring, if you're interested in particularly wondering how you're engaging corporate partners, you could measure what number of corporate volunteer events did you hold in a 12-month program period. Another option might be to measure the number of volunteer mentors who are providing X or more hours of support to your program in a certain period. I think we're all really familiar with measuring volunteer hours in the aggregate when it comes to match, but maybe we're wondering, and this is data we'd already have if we are counting hours total, maybe we're wondering, how engaged are our mentors? Do we want to be able to say about our program that our volunteer mentors are, providing extensive support? And so we could measure an indicator like this in order to find the answer to that. On community advocacy and partnership, you could count the number of community partnerships established within a 12-month program year. You might look to MOUs or other teaming agreements, things like this that might be on file. You might also measure the number of partners to whom one or more career advancement program clients was referred within the certain amount of time. So this goes a bit of a step further, and it's likely information you're collecting via case notes, and thinking about not only do we have these partnerships, are we working in our community, but are we actually using them? Maybe we do have a partnership, an MOU, or we have an informal, conversation with our partners, but are we actually referring clients to those other people in the community? And that's something we could measure in order to find out how strong the partnership actually is, rather than just whether the partnership exists or doesn't. So this is sort of wrapping up the section here on measuring program outputs. You'll notice that I've really focused on, rather than measuring program outcomes, the question of outputs, because that's really what Nicole was looking to emphasize given the 8 activities we wanted to discuss. But you heard me at the beginning stress the importance of identifying a long-term goal for any program that you're designing, as well as the key outcomes of that program. And so I don't want to suggest that it's not important to measure program outcomes or long-term program goals. In fact, those are probably even more important than measuring activities and outputs, because those are the truly meaningful questions of not only what are we doing, but what are the results, what are the outcomes for clients. And so we're going to see a few examples of this next, measuring outputs using different indicators, and actually go a step further and think about something Nicole mentioned at the beginning. How can we use career advancement data to actually tell a story, not just measuring in order to have this information, but really think about who we can share it with and why, in order to tell a powerful story about the work that we do. So we'll move here into using your career advancement data to tell a story. I'd like to suggest 5 steps that you can follow in order to do this, in order to use your data to tell a factual, a true story, and communicate effectively about your program and its results, whether you're communicating with people within your organization, with your donor, with your community, any other audience, right? Meta actually has given a recent training on this, and we have a detailed tip sheet walking through 5 different steps. So I'm not going to focus on all 5 of these steps today, especially because we've already been discussing the question of outcomes and indicators in detail. So I'm going to focus mostly on the ones that we haven't honed in on yet. So let's start here with defining your learning priorities. This is really a key first step when it comes to using data to tell a story. Getting concrete about what we want to learn and what we ultimately want to be able to share as part of a compelling story. It means that we have to get really clear about what we want to learn and for what reason, right? Because there is such a thing as too much data. We're not the kind of, I think, field that has a lot of time on their hands to collect things that are nice to know. We really want to collect data only if it has a clear purpose and that data can be used in a meaningful way. So to remember, you can really successfully tell a program story only if it is one that's actually important, that your audience is interested in, that has a need for you or has a need for that audience, and of course is within your own resources and capacity. I gave a lot of examples of indicators earlier that you might want to collect. I really doubt any person would want to collect all those indicators for a single program. You may want to pick 1 or 2 or, adapt 1 or 2 to really enable yourself to tell the story that you're trying to tell, maybe based on the importance of needing to know that information or based on the existing capacity that you have because you're already collecting a similar data for a similar indicator, and you can use that data in this way, maybe rather than just putting it in a report. So thinking about choosing those learning priorities really carefully and guiding your data collection, your measurement decisions based on what you want to learn. And again, another note here on ensuring questions relate not just to outputs, but also to outcomes for your program. This means if the output-outcome terminology is new, what I'm really talking about here is asking ourselves questions like, not only did we deliver the services we said we would do, how many people did we serve, what were those people's demographics, but also what were the results that they achieved, what were the outcomes of the services that we delivered, what changes have occurred in our clients' lives. So let's look at a few examples. Starting with this kind of very basic question, we might define the learning priority of, this is also called an M&E or monitoring and evaluation question. Does our career advancement program help our clients achieve their career goals? I think it's a pretty simple question, but without thinking about it in a deliberate way, we may not actually have the data to answer it. We could assume that we do, but to be able to tell this story in a really compelling, powerful way, I think there's a case to be made for collecting data deliberately about this. If indeed this is something you're interested in knowing about your program, there are of course a million questions you could ask, but just for the sake of this example. Going ahead into the second column here, after we've defined the question that we really want to answer, we've decided that we think this is something we want to focus on, ask what the purpose of that question is. What would we do with this information if we actually had it? Maybe if we had the answer to this question, we would be able to inform conversations about integration in our community, saying that our program is helping clients achieve career goals, might be able to do this. It might be able to help make a case for increased or continued program funding. It could maybe help us strengthen or build new employment partnerships, current employment partnerships, right? So these are some of the potential uses or purposes for having the answers to this question. And then who's the audience? It's great to have information, but not so great if we can't give it to someone, if we can't share it, if we can't lead to a decision based on it. So this, based on those kind of 3 purposes I mentioned a minute ago, the audiences for this might be potential donors for career advancement programs. They might be community members and leaders, and then, again, those employer partners. So some of the next steps, and these are the ones I'm going to cover quite quickly because we've been talking about it a bit so far already, would be to once we've defined the question that we want to learn and determined what data can be used to answer that question and tell that story, we want to then think about where and how we can get the data. So these steps 2 and 3 are really the kind of questions of defining that measurement system, defining the indicators like I had given a few examples of earlier, and then choosing appropriate data sources. You'll also see data sources called means of verification. Some examples may be you're getting data from your case files, you're getting data from your volunteer timesheets, things of this nature, employment documentation. And we want to make sure that not only are we identifying what we're measuring, but that we've clearly specified where the data is coming from, because if we haven't done that and it turns out we can't get it, or the data that we thought we were getting from the right source actually didn't relate to the indicator that we wanted to measure, then we're not able to tell the story that we want to tell. But for the purposes of today, let's move forward with our example, assuming we can, having defined that question, we've also determined what data we want to use to answer it and where and how we can get it. So the example here, if we want to answer the question, does our career advancement program help our clients achieve their career goals? You might use these 3 indicators as a starting point. You might measure of male and female clients enrolled in the program, what % obtain a new job and promotion within 12 months, job or promotion. If you would consider this to answer the question, right? It may not. I think it might need to be reframed to be a little bit more specific. It could probably be stronger, but thinking about this might be a starting point for, does our program help clients achieve their career goals? Well, if their goals include a job or promotion, we would want to measure this. We could also measure of male and female clients who obtain jobs within 12 months, what % earn higher than a living wage, again, assuming that earning higher than a living wage is part of those career goals. And then you could also take a client-responsive or client-centered approach, right, of male and female clients who obtain the job within the time frame. This is getting back to that, you see the within 12 months here, it's getting to that T in SMART, the timeliness or the time-bound in an indicator. Of those male and female clients, what % obtain the job or a job that is identified in the career path mapping that is on the file in the case file. For the data sources, you could think through looking at the employment documentation, as well as that case file, whether the career path exists, and going back and comparing what jobs the clients obtain to the actual original plan that was given. And maybe your program is helping clients obtain jobs that are not in line with the career path. Should we then say that our career advancement program is helping clients achieve their career goals? Did those goals change over time, right? This is the kind of question we can begin asking ourselves as we're defining a measurement system. Okay, so step 4 here, plan how you'd like to effectively present the data. I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road when it comes to using data to tell a story. And the first piece here is to really return to your intended audience. What is the most effective way to convey or frame the data now that we know what that data is and where we're going to get it, so that the story is actually understood? I think we have all had the experience of staring at a PowerPoint and not knowing what the graph is trying to tell us, or not understanding why we're being asked to really interpret something that seems too complicated. And this is obviously going against the idea of using data in a powerful way to facilitate understanding. And so we really don't want to do that. Going back to the audience, I think is really important, because the best way to convey information to them will vary a lot. Presenting information to different audiences is likely to use different words. Internally, we use, I think, a lot of acronyms, a lot of specialized vocabulary that maybe, your average community organization that's working with other populations isn't familiar with, or, this type of thing is important when you're looking at how to convey information, whether it is in a table, a narrative format, a visual. And what we'll look at now is just a couple of examples. So there's a lot on this screen, and I kind of did that intentionally because I think this happens frequently when you're sharing data. This is kind of a career advancement program dashboard view. And what it's not doing right now is telling a story. It's there for you and you can look at it and it may be interesting, especially if you're interested in parsing out information and really interpreting it. And as a program team, that might be really useful in like an ongoing program meeting. You could track these indicators and look at these different graphs to find out how effective your program is. But it's something that you're required to do that analysis in order to understand. The data that you're looking at right now, it's a starting point. It might be a great way to begin on the road to using data to tell a story, but it's currently not really conveying a message that your audience will be sure to take away. And especially because data can be sometimes confusing, or there's always a risk that someone can misinterpret information that you're showing them. So you want to do the work for them as much as possible, which this isn't quite doing yet. To walk through a couple of these examples, we're looking at more program output data year over year, kind of a pretty simple column chart that you have on the top left. Then moving around to the side, you're looking at the average hourly wage of employed clients, right? That might be information that you're wanting to track. Immigration status, kind of a pie chart format, which I think we are all familiar with. And then what you have at the bottom, this is nice because it's disaggregating client data by gender. You can sort of begin to guess what the story might be here, right? Something along the lines that, full-time males are obtaining more full-time jobs than female clients, but that data is not immediately interpreted yet. So next, let's look at a visual that does a bit of a better job at using data to really tell a story. So what you have here are just a few basic data visualization principles. And I want to stress, keeping it simple is the key piece with data visualization. Never give yourself more work than you need. Everything I'm showing you here is done in Microsoft Excel, very straightforward, nothing fancy, nothing hard to do. Anyone can change the title of the graph, and I think this is such an important thing. Make your title say what you want it to say. If you're reporting to a donor and you need to have it just say program outputs year 3, that's no problem. But if you're developing something that's for a presentation, use a storytelling type of title that is clear about what your program is doing in order for the person to take that away. So for example, after 12 months of career advancement services, 78% of employed clients had full-time jobs compared to only 44% at intake. And you have the use of an action color here, the kind of blue teal color to really bring your attention to what the point of this graph is. It is the question of full-time jobs over time. I will say, data visualization can always be improved. There are always ways to do things more effectively, but I think this does a better job of telling that question of full-time versus part-time, of telling the story of what a program is accomplishing, than simply saying, giving this in a narrative format, giving this in a table, or using a non-descriptive title. One other thing I'll mention on this, as much as you can simplify the formatting of the graph, that's always key. Remove any extra labels, any grid lines, anything that you don't need that's distracting, any formatting like shadows and 3D things. Just keep it very clean, keep it easy to understand, so you're most likely of having the person understand your message. Just a few more examples. This is going back to the using data to tell a story kind of learning priority that we talked about earlier, the question of, does our career advancement program help our clients achieve their career goals? 2 ways to visualize this. You might do a visual that says, after 12 months of career advancement services, 71% reported that their job was aligned with their career goals. We're keeping it really clean, really easy to understand. Everyone reading this will understand what you're trying to say. Another option is even simpler, actually. It's kind of using this idea of a big number. In data visualization literature, you kind of sometimes see this big number as a format option. Just going ahead and writing this in a really clear, obvious way, making that those key numbers, if indeed, this is one of your key outcomes, your key outputs that you're wanting to highlight for the reader, highlight that just visually. I think something else to keep in mind with data visualization is not to attempt to say more than one thing in your visual, right? Each of these is just making one point, as was the graph on the previous page, very direct, very straightforward, and it helps with the question of cognitive load for people. When we're asked to process too much information or parse too much detail at one time, if you're looking at a table full of tons of numbers or a paragraph that's mentioning a bunch of different things, using a visual and keeping it really clear one point at a time will help people really just cognitively be able to process what you're saying and take away your intended message. And then finally, the last thing I'll mention, I won't go into it much, but the fifth step in the question of using data to tell a story is to ensure your data management structure actually enables you to tell it. It's great to have identified a really important question, know who you're going to share the information with and why, know what data you need to answer the question and where you're going to get it, and maybe you even know how you're going to present it in a really compelling visual way. But not so great if your database doesn't actually have the data, have the capacity to track that data, or if your spreadsheet is going to require you to spend so much time cleaning data or making sure that it's the right quality that you're actually not left with any time to analyze and interpret it. So I don't want to neglect the importance of a strong data management system like a spreadsheet or a database in order to use data to tell a story. And that's something actually that if you're interested in learning more about, again, feel free to reach out to Meta because we'd be happy to talk about that in more detail.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Meg. I think it's so important to really think about, all the data that's currently being collected for employment programs and how it can really be used to present a message to different audiences to really attract them and to show off the outcomes that you're doing in the program. So I hope that the audience today gets some takeaways of the importance and the power that data can have to show all of the wonderful work that you can do. And I think, especially for a career advancement program, just showing that you can take a client from a $7.25 an hour job and placing them in a $16 an hour job, and the economic impact that that can have, not just for the refugee and their family, but for the state and for the economy. It's such a powerful story, and you can find those types of resources on WES's website. They have a lot of economic empowerment studies. You can also find that information on HIRE's website. And I do, just before we take questions from the audience, just want to leave you with information from USCRI. So their website is refugees.org. So you can learn more about the wonderful programs and services that they have. And if you would like to speak with Hannah personally, just let me know and I can give her contact info. Meta and their wonderful resources, you can find them online at meta@rescue.org. And they have all of these wonderful resources. They're another technical assistance provider, so any information that they get from employment programs or field programs and your data needs, they're willing to work with you. And then, of course, on HIRE and our website, we have our blog that constantly is covering employment topics. And under our resources tab, we have our previous webinars, the labor market information guide that I spoke about, and then, our online learning institute, which offers tons of courses to further your professional development in this area. So I do want to give time to the audience for questions. And Hannah, we're going to start with some questions for you. There's a question from Janet who would like to know, has language been a barrier for your clients as they tackle some of these trainings in your program? Or are you accepting clients only who already have a high level of English?
I think the program does work better when the clients have a high level of English, but there are people that I guess we're in the preliminary stages of working with who we are connecting with volunteers to help them get more prepared for industry level English and what that would look like in the industry that they're wanting to go into. So I guess, yes, we would prefer high levels of English, but if they're willing to give it some time before they start getting into their training, we can work with them to kind of get to that level of the English that they would need.
Awesome. And Hannah, also for you from Madeline, do you have a typical timeline for a client in your Career Enhancement Opportunities program? Are you measuring how long it takes a client to complete each step on their career plan?
Well, so they're eligible to be in our program for up to 5 years in the country. So it really just depends on the client themselves and how comfortable they are progressing, as well as what their particular career is and how long the trainings take for them. There are some clients, they've only been here a year and a half and they're already in engineering jobs. But there are other clients who are just kind of starting to get into security networking or other kinds of tech jobs. So I think it really depends on the clients, and what you two work out as an individualized plan. But we don't hold them to certain standards, like you are in this certain skill set, so you have to meet these deadlines. We're not really working in that kind of way.
And Hannah, this question from Becky, who's actually teaching the certification programs for the clients?
That will really depend on what kind of certification. Some clients have gone to community colleges or other four-year universities, and some are doing online courses. So it just really depends on the certification for each client.
Okay, wonderful. Meg, this question is for you from Saida. She wants to know, is there an advantage or disadvantage to using outputs versus outcomes? Is there a real difference between the terminology of those two?
Oh, great questions, both of them. Yes, I think there is an advantage to measuring outcomes rather than only outputs. Outputs can be important, and if they're not being measured currently, not something you would want to skip measuring, but really understanding not only what the program is doing, but also if it's effective, if it's achieving results, I think is really key. Certainly it's something donors want to see, but I think it's also something that we as service providers want to know. I think we often have the experience of thinking that we think our program is working, but if we're not collecting data on what the outcomes of the clients, what the outcomes of the services actually are, then we may not be able to say, whether or not that's the case. But I guess to take a step back on the difference between the two terms, I'd love to connect and share some resources we have on this, because I know that there's a lot of vocab that's sometimes thrown around. The key piece, I think, is maybe not getting too hung up on what the terms actually mean, but on what the terms are that are actually used, but instead on measuring, making sure that we're measuring, on the one hand, what the program is doing, so what activities are happening, X number of people trained, or, X number of hours of case management provided, and also on what the outcome or the result of those outputs is. So if we're talking about how many people trained, it is how many people have improved English, or how many people have job readiness that meets the certain standard. And then the longer term outcome, how many people are employed. If it's a question of the output on case management, is the result of that case management, maybe it's the jobs that are obtained, maybe it's number of people who report that they're satisfied with their experience, really getting into what the outcomes are for the services that we're actually delivering.
Great answer. So there's a couple questions here regarding some offices that are having challenges reconnecting with clients once they've exited a program, which are great questions. And I think Hannah did a great job of showing you a couple ways in which they're doing it at USCRI. But Hannah, do you have any specific advice to these offices that are having a little bit of trouble of reaching out to their older clients?
Yeah, definitely. We've had some of those clients that just we don't see for a year or so, and then we'll pop back up. But one thing that's really helped us is by kind of just taking into account what the clients are wanting and needing. So we just started offering a driver's ed class, and we actually go out into the community to do that. So that's one way that we're connecting with them. Also, financial literacy classes. So just by engaging them more on topics that they're more interested in has helped us with that. And there's also homework help programs in the communities, and ESL classes in the communities. So just by being present in the community, we're able to get the word out much easier. And it's been really nice to see these families come back in after a long absence.
Yeah, I'm sure it's so wonderful to see them after you've worked so hard to place them in that first job and to continue with them on their journey. And another piece of advice that I would offer to offices businesses that are looking to re-engage clients that are have been out of touch for a while are the data that you can entice clients with, the data that you're collecting. Utilize some of your success stories, utilize some of your clients who have success stories to really go out and speak to the community, or try using your interpreters who are connected to the community to go out and to kind of just let them know that this program is going on and that you're going to offer an information session like USCRI's office did. So we have one last question. Are there good resources for certification and career pathways for certain professions? That's a great question from Becky. And again, I want to point to the federal resources, Career One Stop and ONET, particularly because they have information for particular occupations. And then, of course, there are certain relicensing guides out for a couple states through Upwardly Global's site. But of course, working with your American Job Centers, working with your state refugee coordinators' offices to find out what information exists for you in your state, because they are state-specific rules. So that's all the time that we have today. If we didn't get to your questions, I'll make sure to answer one-on-one afterwards. I do want to thank Hannah and Meg for joining us and sharing this wonderful information today. And we thank all of you who are out there in the field working so hard on behalf of refugees and immigrants and really making their dreams come true. So thank you for spending this time with us. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And please do not forget to take the survey. It's going to come to you as soon as you exit the webinar or through an email to you tomorrow. The information that you give us is very, very valuable, and we thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I hope that you have the opportunity to implement some of these career advancement programs on your own. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.